you can say, of the Beyond series, where we bring in guest speakers of industry professionals within STEM and try to expose you to the different roles beyond what you would think you would know in a traditional STEM role. So thank you everyone for joining. Today we have our first guest speaker, Claudia. Hi Claudia, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you, Adiza. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this. We're so excited to talk to you today and soak up as much knowledge and gems as we can.
I'll try my best.
Thank you. Okay, so first of all, if you could just introduce yourself really quickly, just like your name, what you do, that would be great.
Sure. So my name is Claudia Fernandes. I currently work in a small biotech in Cambridge. The company does antibody discovery. So when you have a drug that is accepted and that is used to treat a cancer, for example, somebody way in the beginning of the invention of that drug had to discover that antibody for it to actually be able to be given to a human down the line. So that's where my company comes in. So really the first discovery of that molecule before then it's progressed into the clinic and into clinical trials, into humans, and all of that.
Cool, thank you. That sounds very cool and very innovative, I would say. So can you talk us more through the process of the antibody discovery and more so about what your company does?
Sure. So I'm guessing that everybody is aware what an antibody is, but just in case they're not, these are these special molecules that every animal has in their body that is responsible for recognizing something that is not of the body. And that can be, for example, a cancer cell. So the cancer cell will have molecules on its surface that will be slightly different or in much more higher amounts than you would have in a healthy cell. So what you want to do is develop an antibody, so something that will recognize specifically, for example, the cancer cell, to be able to deliver a toxin, for example. So you're probably all aware chemotherapy is not something that is nice at all for the body. It's very toxic. And that's why, for example, when somebody is doing chemotherapy, there's a very high chance of their hair falling out, for example. And the reason for that is because the drugs that target cancer, they are targeting cells that divide very quickly. So they're just going to be non-specific, and that includes your hair cells, which are one of the cells that divide most rapidly in your body. So what we want to do is to develop these antibodies that are going to be very specific for other markers on the cancer cell. So you can attach the drug, but then deliver them specifically only to the cancer cells and not to the rest of your body, decreasing the side effects that that drug has. There are a lot of techniques to discover antibodies. The most traditional one that has been used for the most time would be to inject an animal with whatever you're trying to develop an antibody against, and just let the immune response of the animal to produce those antibodies, and then you take them from the animal, purify them, and then use those. However, because they are being done in an animal like a mouse or a llama or a rabbit, they are not what we call humanized. So there is the probability that when you inject them into a human, they might be recognized as an external molecule, and then your body attacks that antibody as well, not allowing it to do its work. So the technology that we have is completely synthetic. It doesn't use animals at all, and the antibodies that we generate are already partially humanized, so their sequence is much similar to what you would encounter in a human. So there's a lower chance of the body rejecting those new molecules, and it just allows the body to let them do its job, attack the cancer cells or whatever is we're looking for, and it's much more safe for somebody that is going through cancer and needs that treatment.
Wow, that sounds very, very cool that you've already got a library of like partially humanized antibodies. So that's like another step forward in that drug discovery process, which sounds really cool. Is there a specific name or type of name to kind of describe the type of drug discovery you guys do?
The technology itself.
Yeah, and like the type of antibodies.
Yeah. So the technology that we use, it's called phage display. So essentially, there are these little organisms that exist in nature that are called bacteriophages. And essentially, they are viruses that are able to infect bacteria. So they do not infect humans, but they infect bacteria. And we use that to expose our library. So each one of those phages will be able to express one of our antibodies. And that's what we use to try to select the ones that do bind to the target that we are looking for and the ones that do not bind the target that we are looking for. So that technology itself, it's called phage display. There are many other similar technologies. You have mammalian display, which uses mammalian cells, yeast display, which uses yeast cells. The one we use specifically is phage display. The antibodies that we use here at Isagenica are what you're seeing currently on the screen, which are the VHH, or also known as nanobodies. So if you think about a conventional antibody, so that is the one most to your left, you have this Y shape, big molecule, and usually you have constant part, which is the bottom part, and then it's the little arms that give the specificity towards any molecule that you can think of. So being able to recognize a bacteria from a virus, from something foreigner to the body. In nature, llamas, camels, they have been able to evolve in a way that they do have these full-length antibodies, but they're also able to express just the tiny bit that is the one that is responsible for the recognition. And this is what is called a VHH. So in nature, they only exist in 5 different species, being the llama the most normal one that you would use to do an animal immunization. And so you get these tiny molecules, which are 10 times smaller than a full antibody, which makes it much easier to work with a small protein versus a very big complex antibody. So we have very large libraries of these nanobodies. So they are mostly the same with the exception of those little 3 bumps that are in the picture, which are the ones that you have the variability and that are able to distinguish between bacteria, virus, or other molecules.
Oh, that sounds very, very interesting. Also, with the library and with all the work that you guys have done, have there been any significant progress or discoveries in terms of that process in developing a drug?
Yeah, so my company specifically, we are too small to take something right to the end. So not even I know the values exactly, but when you start going into clinical trials, we're talking millions and millions of pounds. So really only very big companies have the ability to actually do clinical trials with molecules. So as I said, we are right at the beginning. So we usually are approached by those big companies who asks us to discover those antibodies, and then they take those forward if they are interested. So we don't have any under our name, under my company's name, but there are molecules that are currently being tested in humans that were discovered by my team or by previous colleagues that were here in the company. So I'm not sure if you're aware of how clinical trials work, but it does go phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and only after that you actually have a drug approved. So we currently have one in phase 1 and 2 of them that are in phase 2. So quite advanced already.
Yeah, that sounds very advanced, like almost at the finish line, and then
yeah,
we've got a new drug in the market.
mm-hmm.
Thank you. So just wanted to thank you so much for talking about like what your company does and what you do. I just wanted to talk more about you and your journey and how you've kind of navigated your career as a woman in STEM. So just wanted to ask more so like what did you do at university and how has your career kind of started from education up till now?
Sure. So as you may see by my name and by my accent, I'm not from here. I'm Portuguese, and that's where I did all of my studies before moving to the UK. So not completely sure if it works exactly the same, but in Portugal, you have 3 years of bachelor, 2 years of master's, and then PhD or whatever you want to do next. So in my case specifically, I did my bachelor's in cellular and molecular biology. So when I was before going into university, I had a really good biology teacher that taught me about genetics, and I completely fell in love with genetics. So I decided that that's what I wanted to do in my studies. Um, I had a very supportive mom that told me that you're already going to have to work hard and study hard, and then you have to worry about getting a job. So might as well study something that you actually love studying and worry about the job afterwards. So that's what I did. Um, and yeah, so I went into cellular and molecular biology. It was very thinking about the tiny things of the molecular reactions that happen in the body and the Krebs cycle and I don't know, a million things that I do not remember anymore, really, nor I use in my day to day, but it was very fascinating, definitely. However, when I got to the end, I realized that it was very theoretical. Like, it was not that I couldn't get a job about it. It wasn't really that. It was really, it seemed very academic, very, what can I do with this in the real life? Like, how can I impact with what I'm learning? So in my bachelor's, I decided to go into biotechnology because I thought instead of being so focused on this tiny area of biology, I would actually be able to be in a more practical field as biotechnology is so broad. I also found it very fascinating that there were products in the supermarket that had been discovered by scientists, like going through the aisle that has the washing powders to wash clothes. Usually those powders have enzymes in them to help eat up the dirt. And I found it absolutely fascinating how a scientist in the lab had discovered that the enzyme, which is a biological product, a protein, been able to see that it's active and good at destroying the dirt on your clothes, and that's stable enough in a product that can be in a shelf to be sold to a consumer. So having that idea really fascinated me. So I wanted to go into an area that wasn't so focused in the university and that could potentially have actual a product at the end. So went into biotechnology. In Portugal, we are very fortunate that we have 1 year of classes, but then 1 year where we are in the lab actually doing research for a full year. Unfortunately, we are not paid for it, but it's still 1 year that you get really good hands-on experience because you are given your own little project. You take it for a whole year, which is quite a long time when you're just starting, and you're actually able to see results out of it. And depending on the lab that you are, you may actually be able to do a lot of different techniques as well. So when I went into my master's, I chose a project that had a computational aspect to it and also an experimental part of it. So I was able to learn computational tools and coding and all of that, but also wet techniques in the wet lab. At the end of that, it was the typical, okay, what do I do next? To give you all an idea, since ever really, Portugal is not the best place to have a job in science. We don't have a lot of science-based companies. We are much more of a service-based economy. So there are not a lot of labs, biotech companies in the country, and most people end up being funneled into doing a PhD. At the time, I wasn't ready to leave Portugal, nor was I ready to leave research as well, because I really loved that 1 year of research that I did during my master's. So I looked around, decided to do a PhD, and in Portugal, the PhDs are organized by programs. So each program is financed by the government and is under some kind of university. So the program that I was doing was in collaboration with MIT in the States and with a lot of different universities in Portugal. And yeah, those were 4 years. The first year we had classes for around 4 months. We had 2 placements in 2 different companies, small companies that existed in Portugal. And then the next 3 years were my actual PhD program, which really depends on the lab and their area of expertise. Yeah, I was having a lot of fun. R&D is very fun. Don't go into a PhD if you're not willing to bash your head against the wall, because it is hard. It's your baby. It really makes you sweat to get there, because you are trying to discover something that is completely new, sometimes with very little prior experience from the lab that you are, because you're trying to develop something that hasn't really been tried in that laboratory. But yeah, at the end of that, I got to the point where, okay, now I really don't have a way out. I either stay in academia, which is super saturated, well, everywhere, not just in Portugal, super saturated, a lot of competition. I have a lot of people with much more experience in front of me. And I was having that little feeling I had in my bachelor's again, which, if I stay here, the only impact that I have will be the articles that I publish in a journal. But the impact of that is actually really small. That the probability of that actually translating into a product that can benefit somebody's life, I really wasn't seeing a way forward there. So before I finished my PhD, I started searching. The UK was, of course, one of the first places I started searching, because English was like a second language to me. There was a lot of science related jobs here at the time. So I just started sending a lot of CVs, came to some interviews. And yeah, my PhD scholarship ended in December 2018. And in January 2019, I was starting here at this company. And I've been here for 7 years now. And I've been really enjoying the journey so far.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey. It's so interesting to see how just the impact of, walking through a supermarket and having that knowledge of enzymes in like washing powders, like knowing how that's something that I've learned from like education, but actually seeing how it can be applied in real life, and that kind of inspired the next stage of your journey. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I also wanted to ask, you kind of did mention that already, but has there also been another situation, or did something happen like during your studies that kind of had a significant impact on you in a way that you didn't really expect?
I think we can come back to that question when I do explain what I do now. But essentially, I think that, so I am, if you would tell me that I would be doing the kind of job I'm doing now 7 years ago, I would not believe you, not at all. And one of the things that makes me particularly good in my job is storytelling. So I have a very good skill of being able to look into the past and dig out little nuggets that explain why I'm here now, which I didn't really realize when I was doing them in the past. So it's not that they were done on purpose to get me here, but looking back, they do make sense. So when I went into my PhD, one of the reasons that I chose, that I applied to the MIT Portugal PhD program, it wasn't because I wanted to go to MIT, which is such a prestigious institution and everybody knows about it. It was really almost a marketing ploy. So I knew that if I had in my CV that I did a PhD program through MIT, which is not exactly true, everybody would recognize it and it would just feel much more sexy, really. Because it was associated with the MIT, there were a lot of like entrepreneurship kind of classes, management kind of classes. So all of that really gave me a more broader vision about what means for a company to exist. So at the time, I was very, very much focused on the R&D side. So me being that little scientist in the lab, doing her own job and contributing that way without realizing everything else that is necessary for a company to actually survive and be successful. And some of those things are going to look for new clients because they are the ones that pay us to do the job. Doing a little bit of marketing, so being able to talk about our technology in a way that convinces other people that we are the experts, we know what we are doing, we have good results. How can we transmit that information, which is confidential, but still in a way that looks professional, looks scientific, to be able to, again, bring in new customers or to keep customers that we already have, managing expectations. So there were a lot of soft skills that I learned during my PhD and before that, that have been very useful for the job that I do nowadays. And also another one is, so as you can imagine, Portugal is not a particularly rich country. So the labs in academia learn a lot how to do omelets without eggs. So we are able to be very creative on how we do science because we don't have a lot of money to spend on the super expensive kits and machinery and all of that. So that made me very good of, okay, we don't have this equipment which I need for my next experience, but the department in the next building does have it. So let me make friends. Let me go build this relationship with the lab next door so we can actually use their equipment and they can then use something from us. So building that network of relationships as well was very useful for the job that I currently do nowadays with alliances. And also I'm not sure if I can say this, especially in a recording, but In Portuguese, we... well, I'm going to say a bad word. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Lovely. Okay, so in Portuguese, we have a very interesting saying, which translates into unshit yourself. So when you're in a really bad situation, you just have to find a way forward. So to get out of the shit and shit yourself. So I don't have the means to do this. How can I use what I have to be able to build the relationship, be able to make this experience work? So really getting that I don't have all of the pieces of the puzzle right now, but how can I go get them elsewhere or design them myself or build them myself? So that also has been really useful for the kind of job that I do, because I don't want to make anybody sad, but science doesn't work 80% of the times, minimum. So you have to be very resilient and just keep going and discover new ways forward. And yeah, I think a lot of that I gained as I was doing my PhD and the research, doing my master's, and all of that I did during my studies, really.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I would say it's been very insightful, and it's very good to know the reality of if you actually do want to go into R&D, like 80% of the time, it doesn't work. So you really need to have that resilience, like you kind of said, and know how to unshit yourself, because, you know, like you said, sometimes you're not always going to have everything that you need, and you need to have that kind of curiosity and just the ability to kind of find the solution for yourself and problem solve. So yeah. Thank you. And also, very big question that we probably should have discussed earlier, but what is it exactly do you do, and what is an alliances manager?
So my role is, this is very company dependent. So if you do go looking for an alliances manager in a different company, even in a biotech company, it might be slightly different. But here, because we are a very small company, there's a very big chance that people wear different hats. So you are probably going to be doing a lot of little tasks that maybe in a bigger company would be much more divided. So my role has two main parts of it. One of them is the more alliances manager bit. So there's a big team of scientists here at Isagenica. Usually each one of those scientists is allocated to a project that belongs to a company. So they're doing discovery for that company. And my role is to supervise the science. So make sure that the results that we're getting make sense. If they don't, how can we tell them to the client? So how can we manage their expectations? Because they are paying for a service. And when you pay for something, you expect that it's going to work. But again, science doesn't work 80% of the time. So sometimes things are not as pretty as they should. So managing the expectations of our external partnerships, making sure that we have all of the documentation in place. So we have the plan that they will need to do the science, what are the activities that we're doing, making sure that the scientists are delivering to the timelines that we promise to our partners, that we have all the slides, all the minutes, all of the data organized. So that's one part of my job. And then as a second part of my job is more related to what would be called business development. So that's a part of a company that is responsible for bringing in new partners. So either by going to conferences or sending cold emails, or I don't know, in the day, cold calling, coordinating with the marketing team to make sure that people discover us. And when we do have those initial contacts, actually talking with them for the first time, so explaining them what we do, understanding their project. Can we deliver on the project? Do we have the technology to deliver on the project? It can happen that we are not the best people to deliver what they are expecting. Is their target very difficult and impossible to do because we have done it in the past, or do we have experience and we know exactly how to do it? So really give that scientific expertise in those initial conversations, convince them that we are the right partner for them to work with or not, and then write down a plan of how we would approach their project so they can look at it, look at the costs, see if they're interested. So then if everybody's happy from both sides, we can actually sign the contract, and then it goes into the scientists that actually do the job in the lab.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I wanted to ask, with the job that you're currently doing now, as you kind of mentioned, like if you had like asked your younger self like 7 years ago if this is what you would be doing, you wouldn't have believed it. So how did you get into it, and what would you say? You kind of mentioned already like the skills that are helping you in your job, but what would you say are the top 3 skills that make you successful at your job right now?
So the reason I said that I wasn't expecting it, it's this job is very face-facing. So I have to go to conferences and talk to people that I don't know, approach them. Well, talking with you guys here as well. And 7 years ago, I would describe myself as a major introvert. So I was very happy to be in the lab, doing my own thing, doing my little organization, deliver the results at the end. But I didn't really see myself interacting with so many different people, um, or managing a team. There's a little bit of an imposter syndrome in there, but who doesn't? But yeah, so I think the main skills that make me very successful is this storytelling bit. So being able to um, transmit the message that we want to transmit in an interesting way. Um, it also ties into managing expectations. So if we don't receive the results that we were expecting, so everything went smoothly, and better yet, everything didn't go smoothly and we didn't get to the results that we got, okay, how can we tell what happened in the lab in a way that makes sense to the client, that this didn't work because we didn't want it to work or we didn't do our job, but because there were actual scientific roadblocks that made it not possible for it to work. So being able to tell that story in a way that manage the partner's expectations is quite a big bit of it. I would probably not say this if it wasn't for a meeting internal meeting that we had on Friday. But I actually had one of the people that is in my team make a public thank you to me during his presentation. Because he was like, "Oh, I didn't know where to go next, and then I went to talk with Claudia, and we went through the results, and she gave a really good suggestion of how to go forward, which worked." And he was saying like, "Don't don't downplay the scientific expertise that people have." Uh, I don't really want to like to do the maths, but I have been doing science for more than 13 years now. So it's been more than 13 years that I've been in a lab. I wasn't always working in antibody discovery, but in one way or another, I was doing discovery for these 13 years. So I have done a lot. I have done a lot of techniques. I have bashed my head against the wall many, many times. I have had thousands and thousands of negative results and dozens of positive results. I've seen a lot of targets. I've worked with a lot of antibodies. So there is quite a lot of scientific knowledge that I have in my head, and that I love transmitting that to other people so they don't have to go through those thousand mistakes that I did in the past, because there's no use them bashing the head exactly in the same place I did. And I really love that part of my job as well. So being able to transmit that knowledge that I have gained throughout the years and other people have given to me as well. So we are not all just repeating the same mistakes again and again and again, and we're able to progress more quickly. So that scientific expertise is something that makes me really good at the job that I do right now as well. And the third one, which might surprise a lot of people, is, if you haven't realized, I'm a bit of a type A personality gone to the extreme. I am super organized, super process driven. I love to-do lists and crossing things out of my to-do lists. I love that the data is all organized in exactly the same way. They all have dates, so they're organized. The columns are all the same. Yeah, I know. Not everybody is like that. It's one of those things that I always did, because when I started my PhD, for example, or better yet, when I did my master's and I went to write my thesis, I realized how difficult it was for me to go back into the data I generated 1 year ago to be able to write my thesis, just because it made sense at the time, but because I didn't leave it nicely, neatly organized, I had to go back into Claudia's brain 1 year ago and what the hell was going in her brain? Like, what the hell? So yeah, doing that from the start makes your life much easier. And truth be told, I was the kind of person that everybody would ask for my study notes before the exam. So if that tells you anything. So it was always something that I had in me, but I didn't realize how much of a skill it was until I started teaching these to other people. And people would come to me or like, oh yeah, this is really useful. Um, like, for example, something so simple as one of the younger scientists here sent a full 96 well plate for sequencing. Put the name of her samples, send it for sequencing, data comes back, and it's organized alphabetically. What you didn't realize, if you never saw a 96 well plate, it's organized as A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, and then down is letters. So A1, B1, C1, D1. If you put that alphabetically, you will get A1, A2, A3, A4. So when she got the data, it was organized alphabetically, but not organized how she wanted it, because we usually go down the plate by column. So by hand, she had to reorganize 96 samples by hand. When that has happened to me in the past, and I learned to essentially just put a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the beginning of the name, of the sequencing name. So when the thing comes back, you can just organize it by the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Unfortunately, I was not in when she sent stuff for sequencing, but I can assure you she will never do that mistake again. So yeah, it's those little things that I have found that make my life much easier, make future Claudia's life much more easier as well. And yeah, in a company where you have so many people that eventually leave and come back, and if everything is much more organized and much more standardized, we don't lose all the knowledge that people have had in the last years, but you just can't find it because it's not organized in the straightforward or in a way that makes sense, essentially. So yeah, organization, it's a big thing.
No, it definitely is. As you were speaking, I was just going back to having to refer to old lab notes and trying to find results, and kind of like what you're saying. Okay, what was I thinking in that one lab session? Because I have my notes and it's a whole bunch of scribbles. At the time, it made sense, but looking back now, I'm just like, why did I not just write it out properly or do my analysis then?
Exactly. Because you have no idea what you were. I mean, there are people that have amazing memories. That is not me.
Yeah, very rare to find a photographic memory anyway. Thank you. Also, I want to ask, has there been a skill that you've had to kind of develop on the job that you weren't really expecting, or just, yeah, something you just had to kind of learn as you were growing?
I mean, there were quite a lot of stuff that I had to learn. As I said, I wasn't expecting to be in such a face forward role when I did start. So most of my skills at the time were very much just in the scientific realm. So all of this of how do you manage people's expectations, which takes a lot of psychology and how people think and react to what you say to them. There's a lot of psychology behind there, and how to, in the organization bit, not just how it makes sense to you, but how it makes sense for the majority of people as well. So there has been a lot of tweaks that I've done to my process to make sure that it works for most people. It will never work for everybody, of course. And yeah, and this year not as much, but in the last 2 years, I did have to go to a lot of conferences and talk to people, make that small talk that makes every introvert's hairs just go up. I still don't. It's not the part in my job that I enjoyed the most, definitely. But I did have to gain some skills and some thick skin when I was doing that bit of my job.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that in terms of being introverted, and it's like, yeah, I need to learn how to make small talk and make people like me and like with people that you don't really know. And it's like, I would rather just kind of be with my friends or be on my own. But yeah, it's definitely important to kind of stretch yourself in that way, because like you
Definitely.
said, you know, you need to make connections with people to be able to bring business.
Yeah, even in your personal life, you never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. So the more you open up your network and get better at that small talk, you never know. You might be talking to the person that gives you your next job opportunity, or introduces you to your mortgage broker, or to your partner in life. You never know. So not again, as an introvert, I know how weird this might sound, but don't close yourself off, because you never know. Your next big opportunity might be just around the corner from a simple hello, how are you kind of thing. And people love to talk about themselves. So take that as a tip.
Yeah, just kind of start the conversation and just like let them fill in the gaps.
Yep, exactly.
No, it's definitely true. I'm always telling my friends, like, guys, let's network, let's get on LinkedIn. I'm sure they're very, very tired of you talking about LinkedIn and everything. But
Well,
yeah, no.
you started doing some marketing, so you do have a bit of a different vision over the whole thing, which again, most scientists do not.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get them on. I will succeed by the end of the year. It's one of my goals.
Yes, Nat, I'm looking at you.
Yes, she is my primary target. I wanted to ask another question. You kind of talked a little bit about your mum kind of telling you that, you know, when you're studying, like, you're going to have to study hard regardless of where you go. So just kind of at least do something that you like, which is, I would say, such a nice comfort to have, I would say, because I know a lot of people that, you know, they're kind of guided into what they have to study, and it's just based on what they know as parents and maybe their situation of, you know, maybe they've kind of seen the people that are successful in their area, which is like the stereotypical doctor, lawyer, engineer, and it's just like so yeah, it was really nice to hear that, you know, your mother kind of encouraged you to do what you like. Has there been anything else from your upbringing that's kind of influenced your career trajectory as well?
I don't know. It's a hard one. Like I think probably in the same. I think in the same realm of it. Like my dad, he was officer in the Air Force for many, many, many years, and at I want to say 50. I might be completely wrong about that. But around 50, he went to study law and became a lawyer for the last 20, 15, 20 years. So he was 50 years old and he decided that he wanted to pursue a different career in life. Of course, he was in a position that he could do it and pay for a new education and all of that. Of course, not everybody has that opportunity, but I think it was probably just the kind of mentality that existed in my family of you don't have to get stuck just because you studied this. You can always go do an apprenticeship or start something new. For example, my partner's sister, she studied architecture, did it for, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so, and decided that she didn't want to design things. She wanted to build them. So currently she's a carpenter and started that when she was like 40 or something. So I think this notion that whatever you study in university is what you have to do until you retire is quite an outdated kind of perspective. Like I didn't study business development anywhere during my studies, and here I am. I didn't study like international relationships or anything, and that's what that's more than 50% of my job right now. So whatever you do study in university, it doesn't mean that that's exactly what you're going to use. As I said at the beginning, I've learned so much in my bachelor and I have forgotten 90% of it. I do not need to know the whole Krebs cycle as I used to, because I can just go to the internet and look it up. And I don't use it in my day-to-day, so it's really not that useful. So I think it's just keeping the door open, taking the opportunity to learn as much as possible. If you are in a company and somebody asks help for marketing, for example, dip your toes, give it a try. You might love it. You might discover that you don't like it and you don't want to do that. If somebody is, I don't know, doing a bit of accounting and want some help, put your hand up. Again, you might love it and discover that you want to see numbers for the rest of your life. Just keeping an open mind and not feeling limited that you paid thousands and thousands of pounds for these studies. It might have given you a lot of skills that might be useful in a job that has nothing to do with the area that you studied, but it might still be a trampoline for whatever you're going to do next.
Thank you so much for sorry. Thank you so much for sharing, because I think that's so important, and it's also one of the main things that we as a society try to share with each other, that there's so many more things you can do, like beyond what you kind of been told. So like even this talk today, just like talking to you, we really hope that, you know, we can kind of spread that message as well. So thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, because you don't have to do, like, just because you do a degree, let's say in maths, doesn't mean you have to become like a mathematician and that's it and that's the end of it. You know, the world is our oyster and you can literally just do whatever you want because he says you can't. Exactly. Thank you. I'm just going to ask one last question and then I will open the floor up to anyone else if they've got any questions. Do you have any advice for young people right now who are probably looking to maybe like explore in the biotech industry, from, you know, like just talking to people and talking to different clients and things? Have you noticed that there are any like gaps or skills that you've seen that make people really successful in that field? I know it might be a little bit broad, but just have anything that you've kind of noticed.
I mean, I don't know specifically. I think that as you guys are in a time where you probably have recognized this, but it is difficult to get that first job wherever it is, because people are hopeful, unless it's a 100% graduate job on the paper and in practice, people almost expect you to have some kind of experience already. So if you do have the opportunity of spending, I'm talking about like STEM and lab-based roles. So if you do have the opportunity of going into a lab and learning some techniques, or just the way of supervising, following somebody, even if you don't do the techniques, it counts much more than you did a PCR in a practical class once. So those kind of extra bits, besides just I studied this in a book, can be actually a really good thing. And then sometimes it is word of mouth. So if you do know somebody that works in the area that you want, go talk to them, see what are their companies looking for. As a small company, like, we are not able to just hire anybody, because one extra person is quite a big extra for the company. But maybe a bigger company does have training opportunities that you are not aware of. Again, it comes back to that networking kind of thing. You don't know where the next opportunity is going to come. But yeah, resilience, persevering, and just being curious and open to any opportunity will give you the best chances than somebody that is looking for something super specific that's going to be very difficult to find and get your foot in.
Thank you. That is so true. And that's actually how you and I connected, because I reached out to you and I was like, hi, I want to know more about biotech. Do you want to like have a chat?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's very important. But yeah, thank you so much for, you know, speaking with us and sharing. I feel like you've dropped so many great gems. Like, everything needs to be written down. Thankful we got the recording. I'm gonna like write down everything. Yeah, so I just wanted to open the floor to like anyone that are online or people who are present. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Claudia?
I don't think anyone have any questions.
Okay, cool. All right, so then I'll take it right on time then. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Claudia, so much for joining us and taking the time out of your very busy schedule to speak to us and drop your amazing gems and guidance to us. Thank you so much. Little virtual
You're very welcome.
Thank you. So yeah, I would say thank you everyone for attending, those virtually and in person. Thank you so much for you know, attending, and I really hoped that you were able to take something away from this in terms of everything that Claudia said. You know, just like be inspired by her journey, and also just staying curious and yeah, just trying different things, being open, stretching yourself, like recognizing your skills and knowing how that can kind of benefit you, and yeah, just kind of knowing that there's so many possibilities beyond like what you've been told. And you know, if you stay curious, like, you never know what you're going to find. And you know, yeah, just build the life that you want, and it's probably going to be fabulous. So yeah, thank you everyone for attending. So yeah, I won't hold anyone up for any much longer. We are all free. So yeah, so thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Claudia, again. Thanks everyone.
Thank you for the invite, Adiza. Always a pleasure.
Always. And I hope we all have a great afternoon. Right, so bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, I'm just gonna stay here and chill.
All right.